She thought I couldn't touch her world. That was her mistake. Not the affair. Not the lies. Not even the smirks she gave me after each gaslight session, when I'd question why her blouse smelled like hotel soap or why she suddenly muted her phone at night. No, the real mistake, the fatal one, was assuming I was powerless. She didn't know I had been watching, listening, gathering. She didn't know I was waiting. And that when the moment came, the exact moment before her biggest meeting of the year, I would take everything from her with a ring and a 9-line note folded so tight it could have been a razor blade. No shouting, no confrontations, no final argument, just silence and collapse. It all happened in the VIP lounge of Terminal C. She was flying out for the Darnell proposal, a massive deal that, if she landed it, would make her the youngest executive VP in her company's history. She had her pitch deck, her notes, her rehearsed lines. She had her hair perfect. She had her iced matcha. And she had no idea that in the side zip of her designer tote, sitting quietly between her charger and lip gloss, was a velvet box with a gold band and a note written by a man she had spent the last 6 months discarding, piece by piece, like yesterday's dry cleaning receipt. And before I tell you what was in that note, before I tell you what it did to her, you need to understand something. She never saw me plant it. But that wasn't the point. Because the day I placed that ring back into her life, I wasn't just ending our marriage. I was detonating the lie she'd built her new one on. And trust me, it wasn't just her hands shaking when she unzipped that bag. I had rehearsed it in my head at least 50 times. The timing, the placement, the fallout. But I never rehearsed what it would feel like to actually walk away from the woman I once believed I'd grow old with. I never expected the silence after planting the ring and the note to be louder than any of our fights. She boarded her flight to Boston at 11:05 a.m. By 11:07, I was parked 2 levels below the terminal in my car with the seat fully reclined, staring at the cracked ceiling of the parking garage, palms sweating like I'd just committed a crime. Maybe I had. Not legally, but emotionally, spiritually? I don't know. I felt hollow, like I had finally pulled the pin on the grenade I'd been holding in my chest for months. But I didn't do it to punish her. Not at first. I did it because I needed to free myself. Because begging for scraps of attention while she got dressed for late-night conferences was killing me. Because smelling men's cologne on the passenger seatbelt when I knew I hadn't driven her car made me physically sick. Because hearing her say, "It's all in your head, Elwood," while she deleted her call logs in plain view was the kind of slow death no one warns you about. It wasn't one betrayal that broke me. It was the accumulation of 1,000 little exits. The way she'd leave the room when I entered, the way she laughed at texts I never got to see, the way her phone always faced down, like it had secrets that weren't mine to know. And so, I started gathering. 2 weeks before that flight, I found a receipt in her coat pocket from a hotel in Philadelphia. Dated the same night, she'd told me she was in Delaware with her team. When I called the hotel pretending to confirm a reservation, they confirmed 2 guests had checked in under her name. I didn't need to know more. I didn't want to. But I also didn't want to be the fool who just disappeared quietly. So I wrote the note. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I wrote it like a man who had already grieved the loss. To the woman who taught me what silence really feels like. I'm finally returning the quiet. You'll find my ring. You'll find my words. But you won't find me again. You burned our bridge to build your stage. Now perform without me. Elwood. I printed it in 11-point font, folded it 6 times, and placed it in the black velvet box her wedding ring once came in. I didn't even know if she'd notice it immediately. I figured she'd find it in Boston, maybe after the meeting. I had no idea she'd open it before the pitch. But I wasn't in control anymore. That was the point. Still, what happened next? I couldn't have planned if I tried. Because she did open it early, minutes before her big presentation, in the VIP lounge, in front of her boss, in front of 2 colleagues. And that's where everything cracked open. Because what none of us knew was that she wasn't just hiding an affair. She was hiding multiple ones. And someone else had been watching her, too. I only meant for her to find it quietly. That was the whole point. Quiet revenge. Quiet truth. Quiet goodbye. Just the ring, the note, and the silence she had gifted me for months now. But life doesn't hand you the ending you want. Sometimes, it burns the whole room down just to make sure you're watching. While she sat in the plush white leather lounge chair, surrounded by her team, reviewing slides on her tablet, and sipping on sparkling water with that trademark fake smile, she casually reached for her bag. She was probably looking for lip balm or a pen. I don't know. But her fingers brushed the velvet box, and according to the message I later received from someone I never expected to hear from, that's when the panic started. She opened it in front of them. Not in secret, not in the hotel, not in private. In front of them. There's something poetic about that. She was always so careful, so curated, so good at keeping me her secret shame. But in that moment, the act collapsed. The woman who built her life around appearances finally met the one thing she couldn't manage: truth in public. The text came from Marina. I know, strange name to pop up in the middle of this mess, right? But here's the kicker. Marina is the fiancé of the man my wife had been sleeping with. Yeah, his name is Kyle. Apparently, he and Corinne met during a joint PR contract last fall and had been keeping their little hotel escapades going through flights, conferences, and team-building weekends. Marina and I had never met, but she found me through an old tagged photo on Corinne's now-defunct Facebook profile. The message said, I think we've both been lied to. I'm in the lounge with her right now. She just opened something. She looks like she's going to pass out. We should talk. I stared at that message for a solid minute, thinking maybe I was dreaming. I almost didn't reply, but then I typed, What did she open? Marina responded within seconds. A ring box with a note. I think it's from you. That's when it hit me. The note wasn't just a goodbye anymore. It was a grenade. I hadn't just slipped out of her life quietly. I had walked into the middle of an unraveling web of deceit that went way beyond me. Turns out, Kyle wasn't her only extracurricular activity. Marina told me that during a layover in Atlanta, Corinne had been spotted and photographed having dinner with another man. Not Kyle, not even someone from her company. Some real estate developer who'd flown in from Dallas. The photos made it to Marina through a friend of a friend. And instead of confronting Kyle, she did something better. She watched. She waited, just like I did. And now, here we were, two strangers, two broken hearts, tangled up in someone else's performance. Only difference? We weren't clapping anymore. Meanwhile, Corinne sat there, holding the ring like it was evidence in a trial. Her hands were shaking. Marina said her face drained of color. Her boss leaned over and asked if she was okay. And in that exact moment, someone behind them, a junior staffer from marketing, blurted out, Wait, is that a wedding ring? I thought you weren't married. Yeah, you read that right. She had told them she was divorced, that I was long gone, that the ring was just an old mistake. But now it was back, in her hand, in front of everyone, along with a note that made it very clear I hadn't just left her. I was pulling back the curtain on everything. And the worst part? The presentation was scheduled to begin in 13 minutes. Marina told me that Corinne stared at the note for a full minute without saying a word. She didn't cry. She didn't tear it up. She just sat there, stone-faced, like her brain had suddenly lost signal. Her hands clutched the box so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Her boss, Russell, leaned in and asked again if she was all right. She mumbled something like, just a family thing. But apparently, her voice cracked, and that was the first time Marina had ever seen her rattled. I imagined her sitting there, trying to swallow the truth as if it were a pit in her throat, because for once, she couldn't spin it. She couldn't say I was crazy. She couldn't say I was obsessed. There was no argument to start, no door to slam, no eye roll to hide behind. Just her, a ring, a note, and a dozen eyes wondering why the most put-together woman in the room suddenly looked like she'd been caught shoplifting in church. Then came the whispering. Someone had leaned across the couch and asked, Wait, is she married? Another voice said. She said she used to be weird. Marina stayed quiet. She wasn't going to speak up yet. She was still watching. But even through text, I could feel the tension building like a gas leak. This was no longer a work trip. This was a countdown. 12 minutes to presentation. Corinne stood up. Shakily, she walked to the restroom, taking the bag with her, probably realizing she had no idea what else I might have slipped inside. She stayed in there for 8 minutes. Marina said it was the longest 8 minutes anyone in the lounge had ever sat through. Her boss kept checking his watch. Her assistant started organizing the pitch deck alone. And when she finally returned, face flushed, hands damp, she acted like nothing happened. Like she hadn't just been handed the truth with velvet packaging. But now, her smile looked forced. She nodded too much. She laughed at things nobody said. And worst of all, She started taking charge of the pitch like she hadn't just been exposed, like she could still control the narrative. But what Corinne didn't know, what made the next part so poetic, was that Marina wasn't just there as a bystander. She had her own plan. See, Marina hadn't just sent me those messages out of rage. She was planning her exit, too. She was already halfway packed at home, with screenshots, photos, and receipts stacked in folders. She'd kept quiet for 3 weeks, pretending to support Kyle's late-night strategy calls, while knowing full well he was FaceTiming my wife from hotel balconies and bathrobes. She didn't want revenge. She wanted the truth to scream louder than the lies. And that's why, just as Corinne stood up to begin her presentation in the lounge's glass conference suite, Marina calmly walked to the table where the team sat and placed her phone, face up, on the table. She pressed play, loud enough for the sound to echo. A video of Corinne and Kyle, laughing in bed, clinking wine glasses, calling each other baby, giggling about keeping things discreet, all while time-stamped and GPS tagged from 2 separate cities Corinne claimed she'd never even visited. The room went silent. Her boss's mouth literally dropped open. Corinne froze mid-step, one heel suspended, her mouth parted, her tablet nearly slipping from her hand. She said one word. Just one. No. But it was already too late. Because in that room, where she had hoped to seal her biggest deal yet, the woman she used to be finally collapsed under the weight of the woman she had become. And outside, in my parked car 2 floors below, I just stared out the windshield, not even sure if I felt relief, sadness, or nothing at all. Because it wasn't over. Not yet. I didn't expect her to call me. Not after what happened in the lounge. Not after her boss walked out mid-presentation without saying a word, or after Marina left the phone sitting on the glass table like a detonator and calmly grabbed her suitcase, whispering only, "You deserve this." I figured Corinne would just disappear into her own damage, crawl into a PR crisis bunker, or spin up some sob story to blame me for everything. That was her thing. Deflect. Deny. Rebrand the truth. But 4 hours later, as I sat on the living room floor surrounded by boxes I hadn't touched in months, the ones marked wedding and honeymoon photos and old mail, my phone lit up. Private number. I stared at it, my heart pounding like I was the one caught in a lie. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. I answered on the 4th. Her voice wasn't like I remembered. It wasn't calm. It wasn't fake cheerful. It wasn't even angry. It was flat, raw, and cracked at the edges, like a porcelain plate that had been dropped and glued back together wrong. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't ask how I knew. All she said was, "You had no right." I could barely process it. No right. After months of deception, lies, manipulation, after telling me I was the crazy one, after making me second-guess my gut, my memory, even my worth, and now I was the one who crossed the line. I didn't even raise my voice. I didn't need to. I just said, they would have found out eventually. I just saved them time. There was a pause. Then, something between a laugh and a sob came through the line. She tried to speak again, but the words caught in her throat. I waited. I gave her that moment, but I wasn't going to rescue her from it. Not this time. She finally asked, "Did you do it to ruin me?" And I told her the truth. The real, ugly, exhausted truth I hadn't even said aloud to myself yet. No, I said. I did it so I could finally stop loving someone who doesn't exist anymore. Silence. Not angry silence. Not hurt silence. The kind of silence that happens when someone realizes their reflection doesn't look like it used to, and that no one else is going to clean the mirror for them. Then she hung up. I sat there, gripping the phone, trying to figure out what I was supposed to feel. Was this the closure I needed? The revenge? The ending? Why didn't it feel satisfying? Why did I still feel like I was the one bleeding from an invisible cut? But just as I placed the phone down, a new text came in. Not from Corinne. From Marina. It was a photo of Corinne, still in the VIP lounge, crying into her sleeve, mascara streaked, sitting alone at the far corner of the glass wall, her tablet still glowing with a frozen slide that read, "Innovation, Vision, Trust." And below it, Marina's message read, "She stayed after everyone left. Just sat there like a ghost. I think you broke her in the exact way she broke you." I didn't reply. I couldn't. Because as much as I hated what Corinne had done, I never wanted her to feel nothing. I wanted her to feel what I felt, to understand it, to live in it. But this, seeing her like that, It felt like watching someone drown in a pool they dug themselves. Only difference? I was finally out of the water. And then, just when I thought the story was over, just when I started to feel the first breath of real peace, something happened that pulled me right back in. Because the next morning, she showed up at my door. No warning, no message, no suitcase, just standing there, holding the ring box. And what she said when I opened the door, I swear it twisted the knife in ways I wasn't ready for. She stood there like the past had physically dragged her back to my doorstep. Not a word at first, just the wind pressing against her coat, her eyes swollen from crying, makeup erased, her hair pulled back like she'd stopped caring what the mirror thought. In her hand was the ring box, the same one I had placed in her bag less than 24 hours earlier. It looked smaller now, almost pathetic in her fingers, like it had lost all its weight the second she realized it was no longer hers to wear. I didn't speak. I wasn't ready. But I opened the door wide enough for her to decide. If she wanted drama, she could turn around. If she wanted honesty, she could come inside. She stepped in. Her voice was rough, low, unfamiliar. "I didn't come to beg," she said, placing the box down on the table near the entryway without asking. "I came to explain." I almost laughed. Explain what? The hotel bills? The deleted messages? The second phone I found in her glove compartment that she still didn't know I knew about? Or maybe the way she told her co-workers she was a widow, because being tied to a quiet logistics guy like me didn't fit her fantasy? But I didn't say any of that. I just let her talk. She said the affair started as nothing, which, in her world, meant it was always something. She said Kyle was just a mirror, someone who made her feel like the version of herself she thought she'd lost after marriage. But it wasn't love. It wasn't even about me. It was about control. Image. She said, "I didn't cheat because you were bad to me. I cheated because I thought I deserved more. But I didn't even know what more looked like." That's when the twist came. She sat on the edge of the couch, elbows on her knees, and pulled something from her coat pocket. A small white envelope. Unmarked. She slid it across the table like a final bet at a losing poker game. "I found this 2 weeks ago," she said. "It was supposed to be our moment. I was going to show you after the pitch. Before everything." I opened it. Inside was a folded clinic slip. At first, I didn't understand what I was reading. I thought maybe it was some insurance paperwork or an appointment confirmation. But then I saw the name. Hers. And below it, one word. Positive. Pregnancy test. She was pregnant. Or at least she had been. "I lost it last week," she said, her voice barely audible. "Didn't tell anyone. Didn't even tell Kyle, because I didn't know if it was his or yours. And honestly, I didn't want it to be either. I didn't want to feel like a monster. I wanted something good to hold on to." I didn't know what to say. Every thought I had evaporated. I stared at the envelope, my fingers numb. My heart wasn't breaking anymore. It was just tired, like a worn-out engine that had nothing left to burn. And that's when she looked at me, really looked at me, and asked the one question I had never expected from her. "Do you think I'm beyond saving?" It wasn't manipulative. It wasn't performative. It was just broken. The kind of question people ask when they're standing on the edge of their own choices, finally realizing there's no applause waiting on the other side. And for the first time in months, I realized something terrifying. I didn't hate her. Not really. I hated what she did. I hated the lies, the gaslighting, the way she made me feel small so she could feel important. But as she sat there, stripped of every excuse, holding a truth even she couldn't escape from, I saw the woman I married. Not the polished version, not the PR weapon, the real one, lost, flawed, and begging for a way out of the wreckage she'd created. But it didn't mean I had to catch her. Not anymore. She waited for an answer like it would absolve her. Like I could flip the switch and tell her she wasn't a bad person, just lost, or confused, or some softer word she could eventually use when retelling the story to someone new. But I wasn't going to hand her a rewritten ending. Not after what she did. Not after months of deception, manipulation, and the hollow stares over breakfast while she texted other men and blamed me for not being romantic anymore. I stood there for a long time, pacing slowly by the window, trying to find a place inside myself that wasn't shattered. The truth was, she hadn't just betrayed me. She had shattered the entire structure of my life. Our home had been a performance. Her affection, a stage cue. Our marriage, a marketing campaign. One that had quietly been replaced with a newer, sleeker model behind my back. When she asked, "Do you think I'm beyond saving?" I think part of her wanted punishment. Or maybe forgiveness. Or maybe both. But what she really wanted, what she always wanted, was for me to decide, so she wouldn't have to. That's when I said the line I'd rehearsed in my head, but never aloud. It came out calmly, not as a scream, not as an accusation. Just a quiet verdict from someone who finally understood the difference between being in love and being held hostage by a memory. I think you're beyond us, I said. She flinched. I think she expected something else. Maybe a plea to fix things. Maybe a fight. But there was nothing left to fight for. Not when the trust had been buried beneath her lies like a time capsule she never planned to dig up. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, both hands covering her face now. Her voice was muffled when she finally spoke. I don't even know how to ask you to stay. I don't think I deserve it. You don't, I replied, maybe too fast. But then I added, that doesn't mean I want you to disappear. I just can't be the man who rebuilds you. Not anymore. I wasn't being cruel. I was being done. She sat in silence for a while, staring down at her hands like they belonged to someone else. And then, in a move so completely unlike the woman I thought I knew, she didn't beg. She didn't argue. She simply stood up and said, I'll send someone for my things. As she walked to the door, she stopped and looked back one last time. I don't know who I became, she said, but I hope, someday, I figure it out. And then she was gone. No more lies. No more gaslighting. No more apologies made of mirrors and smoke. Just quiet footsteps, the creak of the front door, and a ring box still sitting unopened on the table where she had left it earlier. I stared at that thing for a long time. Not because I wanted to keep it, but because I realized it didn't symbolize love anymore. It symbolized escape. But here's the part that still makes my stomach turn. A few hours after she left, I received one more message. Not from her. Not from Marina. Not even from Kyle. It was from someone I never knew existed. Someone she never told me about. Someone who called me Dad. At first, I thought it was a mistake. A spam message. Something misdirected. It was a short, shaky line sent from an unknown number just hours after Corinne walked out of my life for good. The message simply said, Are you my dad? Followed by a sad face and the name, Callie. My heart jumped into my throat. I didn't recognize the number. I didn't recognize the name. And for a moment I froze, not out of fear, but out of the terrifying realization that there was still something I didn't know. Something Corinne hadn't told me even after everything had fallen apart. I typed back cautiously, Hi, can you tell me who you are? A few moments later, a longer message arrived. It wasn't written by a child. It was written by a teenager, careful spelling, cautious tone. She said her mother's name was Madison, that she had found my name through an old document in a folder her mom had left in storage. She didn't give me details, just said she believed I might be her biological father, and she wasn't sure if she should even reach out. She apologized if she was wrong. I sat there in disbelief. Madison, that was a name I knew. Briefly, one summer in college, before I met Corinne. One of those short, forgotten chapters that life buries under jobs and bills and wedding invitations. We'd parted ways with no drama, no real closure, just time and distance. But now, almost 2 decades later, that chapter had opened itself again. I didn't tell Corinne. I didn't need to. She had already taken everything she could, and the last thing I wanted was to give her one more piece of a story that no longer belonged to her. Instead, I took my time. I messaged Callie slowly, carefully. We talked for hours over the next few days, about nothing and everything. She told me about her dreams, her love for astronomy, how she wanted to work with NASA. I told her about my awkward high school years, my job in logistics, and how I once burned a frozen pizza so badly the smoke alarm went off 3 rooms away. We laughed. It felt pure, easy, like something hadn't been broken yet. After a few weeks, we agreed to meet. Public place, daytime. I didn't expect anything. But when I saw her, a shy girl with bright eyes and a nervous smile, holding a sketchbook covered in stars and planets, I swear something in me clicked back into place. Something that Corinne had chipped away over years of cold glances and quiet contempt. Callie wasn't a do-over. She wasn't a replacement. She was something better. A reminder that even after destruction, life continues to grow in unexpected corners. And months later, when I gave her a framed photo of the 2 of us from that day, standing in the park, smiling, awkward but real, she cried. She said, I always thought I'd have to find myself alone. I didn't know I had a piece of me still out there, waiting. Neither did I. As for Corinne, she moved out of state. I heard through Marina that she tried consulting work, but burned too many bridges. Last I checked, she was living with her sister, trying to rebuild something she can live with. I don't wish her harm. I don't wish her success either. I just hope she learns what I finally learned. Love is not about controlling someone else's light. It's about protecting it, even when it's not shining on you. And me? I don't live in the shadows of betrayal anymore. I live in the space between forgiveness and freedom. I go on long walks. I take photos of clouds. I write Callie letters every week. And last month, for the first time since everything collapsed, she signed a card not with "thank you" or "from," but just one simple word. "Love, your daughter." And that's when I knew. The ring she tried to throw away didn't ruin me. It returned me to the life I was always meant to find.